So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And we are on the way home from Buckeye Gamefest 2025, another convention in the books. So we're doing kind of our car video / just a debrief, have a chat about the convention, let you know what we experienced, what we had going on. This year was a big year for Buckeye Gamefest for us in the sense that we got there Tuesday night and it's Sunday morning and we're leaving. So we were there for a long time.
And I always feel like it's when we go on Tuesday, I feel like it might be one day too many.
You know what's funny? So the last time we came on a Tuesday it wasn't last year, but I think it might have been the year before that. And I felt it. I felt exhausted. I feel less bad than I did that time. And I'm surprised by that because I'm 2 years older.
Yeah,
and I slept worse.
I feel like I'm exhausted and I slept really bad.
But I felt like at the end of last time when we did this, I was mentally exhausted, but I was also I was in pain. My back was aching just from
bending over
around and
reaching. Yep.
So I was surprised at how well I held up compared to when the last time we did this. But part of the reason that we did that was just because we could get more games in.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, Buckeye Gamefest, it's a smaller regional convention, although there was people from all over the United States there, which was very cool. And it's basically, they have a big weekend of games and vendors, and there's probably, 300 odd people that go.
Yeah, to the whole thing.
But for the entire week leading up to that and the weekend before, they have the War Room. And that's what we're interested in, and that's what we go for.
There's no fighting in the War Room.
There's lots of fighting in the War Room. And so they have all the other regular games and people come and play them. And then separate, kind of just across the hallway, we have the War Room. And it's just a room dedicated to wargaming. Typically, it's just hex encounter wargaming, regular wargaming that we do. This year, there was some scheduling stuff that was going on, both from the weekend that they were actually doing it all and getting some new guys in. So they actually had some miniatures kind of tucked in the back half of the hall this year.
That's a misstatement.
Yeah.
Not tucked in the back, taking up the entire back.
But it's a room where, we've got time and space and to just play war games. And so there was guys who were playing OCS Smolensk for a week. The
whole week, yeah.
Typically, last year they had guys playing Labatai. They were doing GBACW. So it's an excuse to get these big games out because you've got the time to do it, basically. Yeah. So that's the kind of vibes you're going to get there.
I didn't see the Labatai guys.
No, they weren't here this year, which was a surprise.
Which is sad, yeah.
But I don't know. Who knows? But because it was on a weekend that this normally isn't. So perhaps there was other scheduling things that those guys were doing something else.
Maybe.
Who knows? But all that to say, I had a great time. Lots of wargaming. Got to see a whole bunch of old friends again, but also met some new people who were there for the first time. That was pretty exciting. And so we just wanted to kind of walk through what we did there. And if you choose to go, let them know we sent you.
Yeah.
And also what you can expect from a kind of a convention like this.
I would disagree with you in one regard. I think your statement was an understatement. It was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
We played so many games and knocked so many big games, older games off of our list. It was just phenomenal.
Learned some new games that were really cool as well. It was just, yeah.
And then just had a good time. It's low key, low pressure, pretty open. It was good to see a lot of new gamers there.
Yeah.
There were a couple Ohio State college students that came over, and I introduced myself and we talked to them a little bit. That was nice.
Yeah, and it was the case of a few years ago, Russ started coming.
Yeah.
And then he brought Jordan, and then they brought Steven this year.
Yeah.
It's one of those word of mouth, bring your friends, having a good time, trying to harangue more people to come so that you can play bigger games or more games, or they can enjoy participating in this kind of event as well. So it's something that has natural growth to it. And the War Room itself, only has only. There was like 50 or 60 people there on Saturday at its peak.
Yeah, I think they said they had 56 badges.
Yeah.
And I bet there were about 50 people there on Saturday at its busiest.
Yeah, when they're all there. So, it's not like Gen Con.
No.
It's not even like WBC, right? WBC's got a couple thousand people there.
Yeah.
And this is like, a couple hundred. But there's still a great opportunity to get to know people and get some more gaming in.
Yep.
So, let's dive on in because we played a lot of games.
We did. Bully for us.
We drove up on Tuesday evening after work, kind of booked it over, and first thing we did was set up Crusader Revolution from Compass Games. Now we subbed it back into our shelf of shame from last, because I think
it was on the list last year.
We didn't get to it.
We never got to it.
And I desperately wanted to. So we set that up, and we played it that evening. I think we played 3 turns Tuesday night. Yes.
With setup.
Because we were doing the 5-turn War of the Catalans scenario. So we did 3 turns that night, tried to sleep, and then the next morning got up, had some breakfast, and finished that off by 11 a.m. It didn't take long. So that Crusader Revolution, it's a point-to-point movement game, uses the Paths of Glory system, although they probably can't call it that. And it's about the Spanish Civil War, and it was amazing.
I enjoyed that game immensely.
Everyone who had said anything to us was like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I fully agree with them. And it was a great way to kick off the convention with something that was rich and meaty. Big war game. It was also satisfying to get something off the shelf of shame, and for it to be, that's probably a 10 out of 10 game for me.
100%.
That is a great way to start off the con.
I very much enjoyed the way it used the Paths of Glory system, trademarked, whatever. But it felt unique and interesting, and those first 5 turns was literally, I felt like we were just slapping each other around.
Yeah.
And not able to really break through and do a whole lot, but that was frankly really very fun.
But then I actually think it was a lot more dynamic. There's a lot more movement in that, especially in the south where you have the Army of Africa charging up, that at least on the western front of Paths of Glory you do not get.
No.
It's very attritional there. And so especially in the early war there's a bit more freedom. If you can do it, it's very risk reward. But that was wonderful to experience. If you're going to play the whole thing, it's probably going to take you all day.
Well, because I think it was like 18 turns, if I remember correctly.
I think it's 15. I think it's
okay.
I think I remember it being 3 rows of 5, but it could be more. But it's, are you going to play the whole thing, or you're going to kind of adjudicate, hey, someone's won at some point? I don't know, but you're going to play that all day, and it's going to be an amazing experience. And how many games are there on the Spanish Civil War, right?
I mean, not a ton.
There's a few out there. Some of them are at a very large scale. Some of them are, an individual battle here or a tactical game here. We have some of those. We played some of those.
But I think the ones that we were Land and Freedom, it's a game on that.
Very high level, very abstract.
A las Barricadas.
Yes, which
from
is
Compass.
That's a scenario-based tactical game. We have that. Not played it yet.
And then we have España 1936 from Devere.
And I think that is probably more comparable to something like Crusader Revolution.
Yeah, I would agree.
At the scale and what
agree.
kind of, I guess it's an overall game of the whole war, right?
Yeah.
I presume.
I think so.
And I've got Guadalajara, which is an SCS game that's like the Battle of Guadalajara as they're charging into trying to get to Madrid. So we've got some bits and pieces on it, Having played this, it sparks my interest. That's how it always is, right? You're like, ooh, I played one game and it was amazing. And what more do I have?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get some of those played and get a Spanish Civil War theme going over here. But that game was incredible. Great way to start off the con.
Excuse me. Agreed.
After we were done with that, we then set up Black Orchestra, which was another game that you bought, gosh, how long ago?
At least 3 or 4 years ago.
At least 3 or 4 years ago.
Probably around COVID.
And it was a game that it was like, oh, this would be a fun co-op game. Maybe we could rope Kelly and Paisley into playing it.
That won't happen.
No.
It's too long and too complex for them.
So it's a cooperative game where you are people within the German regime trying to plot to assassinate Hitler. So if you think of von Stauffenberg, Valkyrie, Operation Valkyrie, all that stuff, it's those guys. Like von Stauffenberg is one of the player cards.
Help me, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Sorry. Couldn't help myself.
So, you're moving around the board trying to increase your motivation to actually go through with the plot and overcome your fears.
Get the guts to pull the trigger, right?
But whilst also managing your suspicion levels, so the Gestapo aren't
kicking your door
rooting through your stuff and putting you in jail. And then you're trying to fish through this deck to get plots, because there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. You're trying to find for ones that you're good at or you have the stuff for. You're moving around on a board trying to pick up items. Oh, I'm going over here to get some intel, and I'm going over to get a weapon, because those are prereqs for the plots that you need. But you can also do some pick up and deliver stuff with them, so you're acting normally and it reduces your suspicion. And it's a case of trying to get everyone together in the same place with Hitler, with your plot, and then you get a chance to roll these really cool custom looking dice. To try to get it done.
And I think we need to highlight a chance. Not a great chance. Not a chance that has any level of certainty of succeeding. It's very, very hard.
And I think, and I loved it.
I loved that too.
So much. It was...
it's just so well done.
Both
thematically and the interest level. It was just fascinating to see how that all works together.
And it's cripplingly difficult.
100%.
To actually get it done.
Which it should be.
And I think of all the games we played that weekend, or this week, that was one of the most thematic. Because it was so tense. The things you're just trying to get everyone together, and like, oh, this person's got all this stuff and we're working with them because they're going to do the role because they've got a good bonus and they're holding this and that, and they get arrested. No. And then everyone else's suspicion goes up because they were in the same space. And it's like, oh, no. And some of the discussions that we were having, do we wait or do we go? What do we get if we wait? Well, we might get a bigger bonus.
We're not going to get another chance.
If we go now, he's here, we've got the chance. The opportunity will leave to try to get a bonus, and we'll never get the opportunity again. And it was the go, no go discussions. It was the, trying to figure it out. It was painstaking. And you do all this to get a chance at a roll, right? And you think about Operation Valkyrie, it wasn't successful, right? That's the history that happened, was they did all this stuff and it didn't go off. That's what you experience in the game. You do all this stuff and sometimes you whiff.
It was interesting. We actually did 2 of the sniper attempts because those just worked out for us. And I think the first one we missed by 1 success. We literally needed 1 more success. And then the second one I think we missed by 2.
The other one we didn't even get a chance, because we rolled to try and get extra action.
That's correct.
To be able to get better bonuses on it, and they failed that roll. And then we did a faux roll of what would have happened, and we still missed that.
So very hard, but it should be, as all good cooperative games should be. It should be a challenge, but it was fun. I very much enjoyed it. There is a Game Found campaign that we have backed that adds an expansion as well as kind of a new little game.
That game, the Black Orchestra was wonderful.
I loved it.
I honestly loved that. It kind of sits in that space with Orange Shall Overcome, where you've got this very thematic cooperative game that doesn't take long to play, and it just works. Everything about it works, and it was wonderful. Black Orchestra was really, really good.
100%.
After that, so we finished that around 2:00, and then we played 1714 Case for the Catalans, or Case of the Catalans.
The Case of the Catalans.
The Case of the Catalans, that's what it is.
That's also from Debrief.
Yes. So this is it's an older game, sort of 10 years ago, and it's a game about the War of Spanish Succession, and if it's a hex encounter game, but there's no counters, it's cubes. It's got fully deterministic combat in it, and it's a game of card selection on a little market that also affects initiative order, and then you're either going ops or events on those cards, and there's resources that you either gain or spend for those things, and then you take actions to try to move guys, fight with guys, put guys out, take guys off, and it's a game. We played it 5-player, right? I think
we did, yeah.
And it's a case of just one of the most mean-spirited games of all time because
very mean.
Everything's deterministic. You never roll any dice in the game, and so it's a case of I put guys on top of you. You've got to fight them now.
Yeah.
Or the guys that are over there, they kill your guys.
Yeah.
And then you're like, no. Like it is, you will do things to other people. They will do things to you.
Yeah.
And there's no element of randomness or chance. Like they were trying to hose you.
Well, and I also liked the game because there was plenty of opportunity for negotiation.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that is a vital part of the game. Although I felt like our group didn't do a ton of that. I think I did 2 or 3. I don't know if you ever did one.
Not really, but I was pretty much left alone, so I didn't really need
Got
to.
it. So I think as you play that game more, it's going to become, I know what I need, therefore I know what I need to offer and what I can offer. And that, I don't know, very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little game.
What's the value of things? You'll learn that more, so you're better able to negotiate the more you play. Didn't take long to play, 2 hours.
Yep.
And
that included the teach.
Yeah, and I think, so you bought the game a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was on sale on Amazon for like $20.
And at that price, it's a bargain.
Yeah.
And
I had heard good things about it. Russ Wetley, who played with us, he had talked about it, so I took a chance, ordered it. It's a beautiful game. Really reminds me a lot of The King is Dead from Osprey, I think.
Yes, that's an Osprey game.
Totally different mechanics, but it's like some of the same ultimate goals, I guess.
That, like, there's no luck in that game necessarily. Like, everything is deterministic, and you're doing stuff for you, and you're hurting everyone else.
Well, and you have limited actions, right? There's a little table, and there's like 5 actions. It's like move, recruit, attack, pump up your will to fight. What was the other one? Resources.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 actions, and with 5 players, you're not going to be able to do more than one of those for the entire turn. That was a fun part of the game as well.
It was a very tight game. It was real fun. Apparently the rulebook's not the best, the core rulebook, but Russ knows the game, and he's like played it a whole bunch and like knows the actual rules. He's done all the errata online and like knows that. So he taught it really well. So thanks to Russ for that.
And he did such a good job. It was easy to pick up.
Oh, it was very easy.
I'll have to look at the rule book and see if it.
But
how good it was.
That's one of those games that's like it's 10 years old.
Yep.
And like it kind of looks like it is, but it's really good.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Good, solid game. Lots of negotiation, and a lot of those games take 4, 5, 6 hours, and this one doesn't. Yeah. And I think that was a huge credit to that game as well. Yeah. Eminently playable.
And how many games have we played on the War of Spanish Succession? Not many.
1, if that.
So that's always a bonus as well.
Agreed. So that was, that took 2 hours. We broke for some dinner, and then in the evening session, we played Congress of Vienna.
Which was really, really, really good.
Congress of Vienna is amazing. So Congress of Vienna is part of the Great Statesman series. So I think Churchill, Pericles, Versailles 1919, and now we've got Congress of Vienna. Congress of Vienna is much more like Churchill than either of those other 2 titles. Mm-hmm. It's much more that Churchill template, where it's a 4-player game, not a 3-player game, and you're negotiating on the issues around the table, and then you gain those issues, and then you enact those issues for points or to prosecute the Napoleonic Wars in 1813. What's different is, you add an extra player, and the way that it works is you have 3 coalition players and you have Napoleon. Mm-hmm. So instead of just like you're converging on a track that's Germany, that's not a player and it doesn't do anything basically, Napoleon's fully fledged and got a bunch of armies. He's very reactive. He can defend all he wants. He can counterattack all he wants.
Yeah, it is, the high water mark has passed.
Yes.
For the French army, and it's now on the downslide.
But so like some areas will shrink, but he can go and expand. Like if he goes on the offensive and does it successfully, he's gonna steamroll you. Yeah. But it's much more of a war game. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot more. It's not just like, here's the front. I gotta cube or two and a mill support marker, and I got to hit like a 9 on a D10 or whatever it is, and get over that number. Like, I have an army with a number of cubes. You have an army with a number of cubes. We're going to add to that a terrain modifier if there's one. Fighting in the homeland modifier if there is one. Separation of forces. Do I get a bonus because, I've got these guys extra fighting, and I'm going to add mill support markers, and I'm getting this, that, and this.
The Generalissimo marker adds some.
Yeah.
If Napoleon's in the battle, he can add some.
And there's a ton of modifiers, and then to that you add 2d6. As opposed to adding 2d6 and adding a plus 37. That's how high the modifiers get. The 2d6 are the modifiers.
Doesn't the track go up to 50?
I think so, yeah. And that sounds crazy, but the reality is it's broken up into sections, and you do
one
2
loss,
hits, and I do 3, and the difference is only 1 hit. So
it's basically like every 10 spaces is like an additional. Yeah. I feel like it was.
So you have to get a lot ahead to
really do a lot of damage.
Again, there's Napoleonic armies. They're not wiping each other out.
Yeah.
Right? You have a battle, 1 cube gets killed that represents, 10,000 men or whatever. Maybe that's too much. And then the army retreats a space. You cede the ground.
Yeah.
You don't kill 100,000 men of the Grand Army. You don't do it. Over the course of time you might, but that'll take you the whole campaign.
Yeah.
So the war side of it's much more of a war game. It's
and much
real
more involved.
Interesting. It's a bit more involved, so it takes a bit longer.
Yeah.
The issues, the way that the deck works, you don't have separate decks for each of the factions. It's a combined deck with the factions listed on all the different guys, and they have different abilities.
Yeah.
So you might get a real crappy
fascinating.
hand, but there's an option to trade cards.
Yeah.
And you have a hand of 12 cards, and you're using 6 of them-ish for negotiations, and then the other guys you have modifiers
Battle
for the wars
cards,
that you're going to put in. So, do I keep my generals for this? Or they might have a good negotiation modifier, but it's also got a real good battle modifier.
Yeah.
A lot of hand tension in that doesn't really exist in Churchill.
And the concept of the shared deck is really interesting because you don't have the ability to use a lot of those other cards, frankly. You can use some of them, but it's about sometimes keeping it out of the enemy's hands.
Yes.
Right? Oh, I drew one of your I had General Ney for France, and he was really good, and I'm like, I'm glad I got that in my hand, because Russ can't use it against me. I was Austria.
Yeah. So that we played that basically the whole night, and we only got through 1 full turn of it.
Yeah.
Because we were it's a lot to learn. It is.
And we had at least one guy who had never played
any of those
type of games.
So,
John.
Yeah. But we were kind of talking, even if you kind of had a lot of experience, I think those turns are just a bit longer than something like Churchill, maybe even Pericles, although those turns can get quite long as well. So if you're going to play the whole thing or get through a good chunk of it, it's going to take you probably most of the day, all day. But it was wonderful to play with.
Very much worth, I think, the investment in time and the investment in trying to understand the game. It's because now it's opened it to us, and I want to play it again.
And it's it's first impressions time, but like after a few more plays, if it can stay where it is, that might be my favorite in that system.
Oh, well, actually, I think it probably is my favorite in the system, even after we just played it the one time.
And like, I'm real close to that.
Yeah.
Churchill's eminently more playable because I think it's just a little shorter, and that's got a good edge. But
yeah, and I love Churchill.
The meat of Congress of Vienna is so good.
Well, I was asking myself, does this for me replace, say, Pericles? And we love Pericles.
Yes.
It's a little more complex. The combat system is a bit wonky. It fits, but it's a bit wonky. And then the way the factions work together is just so different in Pericles.
Yes.
As compared to Congress of Vienna.
And that dynamic's fun, but I prefer the dynamic of Churchill and Congress of Vienna.
Yeah.
Where it's like we're all, because you get the alliance style stuff in Congress of Vienna, because it's kind of a 3v1, but you also like have your own interests.
Yeah.
So it's the best of both worlds, I think. And so I think that's what's really good about it.
I will say this, Russ Wheatley, who played Napoleon, he really needed to fight harder to keep Austria out of the war, I think. Had he kept Austria out of the war for that turn, I think he would have cleaned up. You know what I'm saying?
No, probably, yeah.
But I was able to get into the war and add my armies to those of the Russian on my couple of tracks, and we fought him to a standstill. Without that, I think we were going to be really in big trouble.
I'm not sure at that point of the game how real because, you know,
Sure.
if he starts playing on that, you just play, what is it, your leader, Joseph or something, I can't remember what his name is.
Yeah.
And you just, I think it's very difficult to do that long term. I don't know. I'd be curious to see someone really trying to go hard on that. But that was, Congress of Vienna was amazing.
Yeah.
It was really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I would have to say that's definitely going to be on my top 10 of the year, and we've only played, 6 or 7 2025 so far, but it was just that good.
Definitely to WBC
100%.
and carve out a good chunk of time to play more of that. So that was everything on Wednesday. So then
and we went to bed at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Terrible.
A theme of EGF this year.
And it got worse as the week went on until last night when we were in bed by 11.
Slightly more reason.
Yeah.
So on Thursday morning we got up and we played a kind of a learning game of Into the Whirlpool from... Is it from Blue Panther?
Yeah, so it's Blue Panther. Okay. It is Tattered Flags #1, Into the Whirlpool, Rose's Wheat Field, basically at the Battle of Gettysburg. It was an original game, I think, done by Victory Point Games, but Blue Panther picked it up. They redid it a little bit, and it came out last year. I played it at WBC. It is a tactical American Civil War game. Lots of crunch, percentage hit rolls. But I very much enjoy that game. I think it's unique and interesting.
Yeah, it's tactical. It's got a lot of detail in it. Where
lots of modifiers.
If you look at the combat chart, but it uses percentile dice D100, so there's lots of room within that to accommodate all those.
Yeah.
So I think if you have a game with lots of modifiers, I hate it when it's a D6 because at that point it gets kind of reductive, but you have a large dice percentage system and it just allows more nuance to accommodate for those things where cool, I get a 5% additional modifier to something. I got the bonus, but it's not insane.
Yeah.
That would feel crazy imbalanced.
I still want to play more of that, but I'm glad that we learned it together, and I'd played it before, but I forgot most of it. But it was very good, and it's beautiful. Alex Zadaran, I think, is the artist. The cover's amazing. The map is amazing. They really did a good job on that one. Yeah,
that one was good fun. We played that for a couple hours in the morning, and then from there we went and we sat down with David Thompson, and you played Rebels Against Rebellion.
Yes.
I watched them play and kind of watched him teach it. So Rebels Against Rebellion is a 2-player game about
Scott County, Tennessee, who did not vote to secede from the Union when the rest of Tennessee did. And because they did that, they then voted to secede from the state of Tennessee and create, in essence, the free state of Scott. Very similar to the movie that we've probably all seen with Matthew McConaughey, The Free State of Jones.
Yes.
And they were the home guard, the good guys, because that entire county was anti-slavery, anti-secession, and then they fought against the Confederate sympathizers and then some Confederate troops who came in to try to put them down.
Yeah, and so it's this kind of point-to-point game, but it's not really point-to-point movement in the same way. You don't have traditional pieces. It's more about control and influence from which you can launch attacks.
Yeah.
But because it's just mostly guys, you don't have these formal military units or even real power necessarily. It's all done from card play that represents, hey, some band of guys got together and did a raid into this space and got the resources that they need.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very interesting game.
It uses deck building.
Yeah.
So you're in essence building your deck, including additional territories, right? You got to take the different cities, and on those cities there are defensive abilities, there's some special abilities, generating food is a big part of the game, because ultimately that's what the real fight was over, because both armies were kind of just ravaging the land,
and that's the timer for the game.
Yeah, it's
as
kind
well.
of the timer, yeah. But I very much enjoyed it. I think it is a unique historical game that's going to fit into a very unique spot in your collection. It's going to come from Flying Pig Games, so they picked it up, and I think they're going to kickstart it sometime this summer or fall. I very much enjoyed it. It was a thinky game, an interesting game, a simple game. I would call it introductory, but I think there's enough there with the asymmetry between the forces.
Yeah, I think the mechanics are introductory, but there's a lot
The strategy,
to that game.
yeah.
You're building your deck, and it's like, cool. He just picked up this card, which means he can launch one big attack from this area that's a one-shot.
Yep.
I need to prepare for that.
I need to upgrade my defenses, or
I need to take the areas around that city that he's probably definitely going to take so that I can counterattack it.
Yeah.
Like there's so much to consider.
yeah.
Rules introductory, but I think for a game like that, there's actually a lot of depth that's going to reward
Agreed.
you. Keep going back to it as well.
Well, and I think that's what I said to David. For such a small game with the limited spaces and limited cards, there's a lot of strategic depth there, because you can focus on 5 or 6 different parts of the board. I wasn't railroaded, if you understand.
No, absolutely, yes. And I think also it's one of those games that the Confederate player almost is trying to set the tone, right?
Yeah.
Wherever they're attacking, you kind of have to react to that. How far and like how much pressure can they put on before they have to kind of switch
Yeah.
lanes and go over here? And they have to be very proactive to get it done.
Yeah.
As well. And it was a very tight game in the end. Scores,
Yeah,
right?
I think
it was,
David won
it
by
was on a knife edge.
3, which I was surprised, because frankly, the defenders, my guys, the Scott County guys, didn't have any cards, I think, that had higher than 2 attack. They had a couple 3 defense territories, but a lot of David's guys now, they were one-shots.
Yeah.
Were like 4 power and 3 power, but it ultimately, in the end, 1 or 2 cards here and there, and I would have won.
And it basically came, like, the scores were such that it was one territory, right?
It was basically
if you
one
knock them out,
territory.
you get the piece and you get the 2 star, right? That's how
Yep.
close the game is.
Yep.
And it was your first game.
100%.
That to me is also a sign of a good design.
Yep.
Where you can be in it real quick.
Yeah.
It was real fun to kind of watch that play out.
Yeah, I would look out for that one, because that's a unique and interesting subject, and it's a unique and interesting game.
Speaking of unique and interesting, after that we played Divine Right. So Divine.
Oh, that was a laugher.
Divine Right is a very, very old game. I'm pretty sure it is like 50 years old at this
I want to say it
point.
was like 78 or 79 or something.
That's the most 50 years at this point. Pungo Games, which is the fun
Arm of
Euro
Worthington.
game,
Arm of Worthington.
put out this, and they redid the art on the boards and the counters. And
It
they
was
zhuzhed
beautiful,
it up.
right? It feels period, meaning not period, of that time, but it was updated and it looked really good.
Yeah, and we
Mounted map board.
The Kickstarter looked great, and it was like, ooh, this is like this cool old game, and they're
Yeah.
gonna kind of revamp it. And they did for the art, and that's all they.
Yeah, they
that's all
didn't change any of the rules, I don't think.
And everyone that I spoke to was like, "Oh, I remember playing that when I was a kid." And the reality is that's what Divine Right is, right? It's a nostalgia pill. They didn't update the rules at all, and
Which is really a shame.
I agree.
Because, in our opinion, it feels a bit archaic.
A bit. It's
Yeah,
very
well,
archaic.
I'm trying to be nice. The combat system is archaic. It just isn't. It doesn't make sense to me, honestly. But that's fine. The asymmetry was completely lacking, and I thought, wow, that was a really great opportunity to say, like, I played the dwarves, and I struggled with the mountains just like everyone else struggled with the mountains. I was moving one space at a time, and I was surrounded by mountains to get out and get anywhere. I also diplomed the elves. I can't remember what they were called, but they were the elves. And they were surrounded by forest, and the same thing. It took me 4 turns to, like, get anywhere. And I'm like, surely the elves know their own place. They would get a +1 movement bonus or something. but they didn't. I
Because-
thought that was a missed opportunity.
Because back in the 1970s,
They didn't do that
hadn't
stuff.
thought about that
Yeah.
yet. So it's like, it was very, yeah.
It's just kind of random, right? It's you're rolling dice and
Yeah,
you're pulling cards, and it's. I didn't feel like I was playing the game as much as the game was playing me.
And I love that, like, that has been reissued, and the people who played it a bunch as kids, because it was like the only
Bought it.
multiplayer war game at the time, can have like a nice copy of it
Yeah.
for nostalgia's sake. But no one in the modern world would ever play that seriously or reasonably.
That is a game that if you are good at house ruling and tinkering, I'm looking at you, Mike Heckman. Maybe there's something there. Maybe someone could take it, redo some of the rules, the combat, the diplomacy, the asymmetry, and make for a more interesting and probably more balanced game.
Yeah, it's you're like card faction specific special abilities away from it being passable.
Right.
And then like maybe rework the combat system a little, and then you've got a decent modern game.
Well,
it's at least fine.
Yeah, I will say the combat system is really set up to be the player elimination style of combat,
which is
what the game is.
Yeah,
I
you're
get
trying
that,
to kill everyone else.
but it just seemed when I had 8 armies as the dwarves, and one combat I lost 3 guys. That's bad.
And you don't get anyone back unless it's from a random event,
Which is 1 in 12. 1 in 12 chance. I don't know. That just felt. I'm good with the player elimination, but come on, man.
But like, it's just so easy to get eliminated, and there's nothing you
100%.
can do to defend against anything other than sit in a mountain. At which point you're not doing anything. Like it was. That one fell flat.
I think we all would say no, thank you on that one. That's us. And the Kickstarter did like $145,000. So
And that's just it. You know, we saw a couple years back the reissue of Kingmaker. They kept the original rules and the original map, so you can play it like you did back in the day.
Yeah.
But they also had an updated version, where they made it a more reasonable game. And Divine Right, I think, deserves something like that as well. So I hope that
somebody does something.
Worthington's been hinting at expansions. There's stuff in the rulebook for that. I'm like,
yeah.
Can we
Don't worry about this part of the rules. That will come in the expansion.
Yeah,
and I read that 3 or 4 different times.
And so, like, I hope when they do that, someone will have worked out. Get us a new, updated version of this.
Yeah.
You know, it's a rule book and some cards. That's all you need to at least, bring it into the 1990s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least go from the 70s to the 90s. Yeah.
Like so that was a bit of a shame because it looks great. It's a beautiful thing to have out on the board.
I am glad that we played it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, I can say I played it. I think we're going to do a video. I think for people out there, they're going to have a lot of nostalgia for that, and they're going to enjoy it. But for us who had no connection to it, coming in, it was just like, no thanks. Wasn't for us.
Yeah,
or anyone at the table, frankly.
No, yeah, absolutely. But it was a case of being able to kind of step back and look at it objectively because I don't have those rose-tinted glasses because I didn't experience that. And you're like, yes, this has not aged well.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, and we're better for it as well.
Yes.
So that was that. After that, we demoed another prototype game called True Command, which is coming from Catastrophe Games. And this is an East Front World War II tactical style game.
Yeah.
And
although it is, was it Brigade and Division?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. It's probably divisions.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember though.
Yeah.
But it's a block war game and it's a bluffing war game.
It has a lot of really great mechanics.
Yeah, and it's the thesis because it's Barbarossa, like it's real early Barbarossa. So the thesis of the game is about the disparity in command qualities. It's effectively what it is. And so you'll have the Germans just have amazing commanders.
A lot of 3-star, a lot of 2-star, whereas the Soviets
have terrible commanders.
Have 1s and 1-2. And obviously the Purge caused a lot of that.
Yep.
And the fact that the Germans had been fighting for a couple of years.
Yeah, but what that does is it really, it highlights those differences without it just being a counter that's like an armor unit that has a 12 and your counter has a 4.
Yeah.
So it just sets it in a different light to
I thought it was
emphasize
a
those
really
things.
unique way to do it. I actually enjoyed that part about it a lot.
So yeah, you assign your commanders to the 4 units you have, and then you have hidden objectives you're trying to meet on this map, and it's a case of moving around, making contact, and you chuck these custom dice in the dice pool that you form.
Very cool.
That stuff's really fun. I love a good dice pool with custom dice. So I'm trying to roll some hits, I'm trying to roll some defenses, I'm trying to roll some outmaneuvers.
Yeah.
I've got a leader, so I roll the leader die, and the leader die might give me something cool, but it also might make him vulnerable, so he gets killed. That stuff's real awesome. Oh, there's the terrain die, and there's there's a whole bunch of different dice that you can get or choose to get depending on where you're at. But the game forces you into, especially as the Russians being at a very distinct disadvantage.
100%.
You have to make up for that with being in defensive terrain, making sure you have support from adjacent units. But it basically pushes you to be a bit more defensive.
Yeah.
To gain some bonuses versus the Germans who have a good chunk of bonuses kind of just inherently.
Yeah.
So it's got some cool theses.
And then there's this whole staff general side where you can draw from a bag, and you're drawing out like your XO or your G1 or your G2 who have different abilities, right? And you're building what's called a plan, and then when you draw that, is it the G1?
The G5 is
the G5. When you draw the G5 or the XO, you can then execute that plan, and it's a whole bunch of cool stuff like, I can heal a unit, I can attack with a unit, I can move with a unit. I thought that was really well done and interesting.
Yeah, you get a bunch of extra stuff, and you can do it with already activated guys.
Yep.
But you have spent a lot of actions committed to doing that. So you get the division of your resources and initiatives of like, am I actually doing stuff on the board, or am I doing this stuff here?
Yeah.
And you've only got so much time in a turn to do it all. So that part of it was real neat as well. Or you can just, if you pull it out, you can use it immediately right then if you're desperate.
Right.
Like, I heal one unit, or I get an extra move right now. But building the little plans, and there's 2 spots, so you can build 2 different plans. Here's my move plan, here's my attack plan. That stuff's real. That was really, really fun.
I think all those mechanics put together do make for a very interesting experience. The only concern I had was the concern I have with every early Barbarossa game. The Germans just kick you in the teeth, and you can't do a whole lot as the Soviets.
Yeah.
And we felt that, although the game was relatively close.
I don't think it was.
Well, it was, because there were still 4 turns, and my guys were all almost
It was close
dead.
for the first 2 turns, and then it just kind of snowballs, and it's not supposed to be a long game.
Well, you could play it as the Germans, then you win, and then you flip and you play as the Soviets.
And I think that's the kind of game that one has to be, because the scenario is, very brittle.
Yep.
So if you lose a unit,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
You only have 4
quickly.
units.
Yeah.
You have a couple scouts, but they're not really units per se.
Yeah, they're more like decoys and things like that, which are helpful, and you're trying to use those to proc enemies to find out what they've got, but then they go away. And so then you're like, well, I've used all my scouts, so he knows where my real units are as well.
Right.
And you give yourself away eventually.
100%.
So it was a neat game. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes with that system. They got a lot of plans for a lot more to go with it as well.
But it's going to Kickstarter sometime this fall, I believe.
Yes, and that's from Catastrophe Games.
Yep, Tim Densham is the designer.
Yes. After that, that's right, we played 5 games in one day.
Yeah.
After that, in the evening, we played Crisis 1914.
Oh, such a good game.
So a couple of friends of ours had tried to learn it, but that rule book is terrible. It was very
It really
opaque.
is.
Although I think they're announcing a 2nd edition already, which I think they're redoing the rulebook. I sincerely hope they are. Oh no, they're not. They were just saying they were demoing it. Damn it! They need to redo that rulebook.
Well,
it's really bad.
I'm sure they will.
It's very bad. The game is awesome. You just have to know
so
the game,
good.
and knowing the game from the rules is not easy.
Well, the game's premise is that it's the build-up to the Guns of August, World War I. Everybody's arguing as the major 5 powers, and you're playing cards to build a tableau that have different events to gain basically influence, which leads to then gaining prestige, but also negative tension. And if that negative tension reaches the level of 6 for anybody, the war has kicked off, that person automatically loses.
Yeah, you've applied too much tension to whatever country, you make them snap, you lose because everyone knows you did. Or there's ways you'll get general mobilization cards for a few of the factions. If they pull one of those and they have to play it, they mobilize, they lose because the war's going to happen. You don't have a choice about it.
Yeah.
It's a case of
who started
you're trying to get enough prestige and not get blamed for having them. And it's a really fun game. It's a tableau builder. There's a lot of brinksmanship with the scoring. And there's only so much that you can do with that, and where you can all see it. It's got great tension in it.
It's not a war game.
Not really.
It is a historical board game, but it's a really good game. I've played it twice now. You've played it like 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5, yeah, 5th time.
I love it both times we've played it, and I want to play it again. It's just fun.
Yes, it's fun.
Literally.
But that was one where they were like, "Oh, can you teach this?" And I'm happy to teach it because it's really good, and it's almost impossible to learn
from the rulebook.
From the rulebook, there's so much that's going on with that game.
But I would give that game like 10 out of 10, except for the rulebook.
Yeah, and
other than that, it's a great game.
No play aids, basically.
Which you can. I think there's some on BGG. Didn't we decide there were some on BGG?
Yes, they're very good on BGG. You should definitely print those off. Those are invaluable.
Yeah, we use those. We're using those.
So that was everything on Thursday.
And man, I was tired.
Yeah,
already.
that was we were pretty bushed. Friday was kind of a big day. Usually when we go to these cons, we play at least one big, not quite all day, but almost an all day game. And Friday was Successors 4th edition from Phalanx. We played Successors at BGF
like 4 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago. And that was kind of the first time we'd ever played it. And we played, I didn't know it at the time.
A weird scenario.
Yeah, we played one of the late game scenarios because I just picked up the scenario book and picked the first 5-player scenario I could find. And I didn't realize that there's like the regular 5-player campaign setup in the actual rulebook. That was my bad. And so I'd set this big scenario up and we were playing it, and it was fun to learn the game and play the game.
Yeah.
But like half of the cool Chrome stuff has already happened in the game. And so what we were doing is a little different from what you would actually experience playing from turn 1 and setting the game up. So we played a 5-player game of that, and we were like 9 a.m. and I think we were done at around 4 p.m.
Yep. And we only took like a 30-minute lunch. We kind of took a fast lunch break.
And it was a very interesting situation that happened where it was the Babylonian player. He's got that funeral cart of Alexander and charging
and it's not the Babylonian character, right? I was corrected on that. I get it.
It's the person who starts in Babylon.
Every one of the generals has a different name, and I don't know them. So they came from Babylon. I called them the Babylonians.
It's a shorthand parlance. We all know what we mean. And so it was him charging across the board, everyone dogpiling him, trying to get it off of him. Which we did.
Yeah.
And then it went from player to player to player.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
And everyone was just trying to spike the football in Palace and
bury his body and get like 7
you get 10 legacy from legitimacy, and then it was like everyone's trying to dogpile and get the heirs and see if we could get a legitimacy victory, which ended up happening is what happened.
Yeah.
But it was real fun.
And if you pan down to the dispersed dead generals box,
oh gosh,
there was like 7 guys.
We're such an aggressive group.
It was crazy.
We had people coming over who played it a whole bunch,
laughing at us,
just like
what's
jaws
going
on the floor, like
Well, and that game, the way the combat system is, you can't necessarily be cavalier about your attacks. You've really got to plan, think about.
And we were just going all out, and it made it for a bit of a riot of a game, but I think experienced players probably don't do what we did.
I enjoyed that game. There's a lot to like. I think I told myself I'm not sure I want to play that anytime soon.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I wanted to play it because I'd had a good experience with it the first time, and I'm trying to always look for those big multiplayer games.
Oh, 100%.
Bring to conventions and kind of add to the rotation of Here I Stand and Virgin Queen, things like that. and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this has good. And I think where I land on it is, I think it's really good, but perhaps not really great.
Right.
Like,
I would agree with
like
that.
Here I Stand is like here, and Successors is a tier down from
It's
that.
a very interesting game. It's just very fragile. It's very long. I don't know. I think I want to take a break from it
Yeah, and
for a while.
it was,
And then we'll get it back
it
out.
was a good time, but yeah, next year we'll do Here I Stand, right? Like that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But that took most of the day.
Or Time of Wars, maybe that's Here
Well,
I
yeah.
Stand like, something like that.
But we're still looking for things that are as good as
Yeah.
Here I Stand, Virgin Queen, and
Hard to find them.
that's difficult to find.
Yep.
That can hold that many players.
Yep.
That was basically the whole day. Did we do it?
It's on the list.
Yeah.
What we did.
So the evening session we did Nations and Cannons.
Yep.
But kind of in between that, we had a couple hours free. I taught Cullen and Neil. We ran through a few turns of Red Dragon Green Crescent that we had set up as a demo copy. So I want to teach those guys to kind of what that's like and how simple that game is to play and how wide open it is.
It's a great game.
It's the ultimate sandbox.
Yep.
So I encourage anyone who wants to play it, you just take the plunge
Yeah.
at it. It's good fun.
We also went shopping.
Oh, yes.
There was a cool vendor there. His name was
It's Age of Glory Games.
Age of Glory Games from Virginia, I believe.
And I looked on their website. It's a lot of miniatures, a lot of historical
Oh,
miniatures.
he had no miniatures. It
No.
was all war games.
But he had brought a whole bunch of war games, and he had a selection of everyone. I mean, it was like he had G&T, MMP, Legion, VUCA, Revolution games,
Yep.
Clash of Arms games. He had a bunch of magazine
Columbia games.
Like he had a ton of everyone's stuff. And it was, we were talking about this. We have been to a lot of conventions. We own a lot of games. We played a lot of games. A lot of the time when we go to it, it's root through and
Well, you
find
see
the
the
one
same
thing
stuff,
that we
yeah.
haven't found.
We found like 10 things.
He had such a good selection of stuff that was like, ooh. So we bought a lot of new games.
Too many.
Probably on the monthly debrief this week, we'll kind of show everything.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it.
But
we actually bought about 10 games. Four new volumes of Blind Swords.
I think we got 5 because one was a baggie.
That new game, that War of 1812 game, Masters at Arms.
Amateurs to Arms.
There we go.
From Clash of Arms games.
That game looks amazing.
We bought The Coming Storm, which is part of the Library of Napoleonic's Battles. We brought Operation Michael, which is a World War I SES game.
And that game looked interesting.
And then...
and we love SES.
And Save South Vietnam from Fortress Games.
From Fortress, that's a solo game, and it's their new boxed edition because we had the bagged edition.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to buy it. So he had a good price. We bought it. I'll play it because I love a good Vietnam War game. But I'm embarrassed to say that we spent a little bit of money.
Yeah, we're keeping him in business. Let's put it that way.
And he was a nice guy.
Oh, he was a wonderful
really
guy.
Nice guy.
And he's going to kind of, but like, I was surprised because, Blue Panther's been there. They have a lot of Blue Panther stuff. Flying Pigs games, they have a lot of Flying Pigs game stuff. And he was like in the main regular board game area. With all of this really eclectic war game collection. Yeah. It was like, it was awesome.
Well, I know he sold a lot because most of our friends there went over and dropped some.
He sold a lot to us.
And then Flying Pig Games also had a fantastic sale.
Yes.
And a lot of our friends picked up Armageddon War, which we love.
A lot of OST was sold.
Yep, OST was sold. That La Resistance, that card, that was purchased a couple of times. So I'm glad they bought some of those games, and I'm glad those guys gave them away for very good prices.
Yes.
But that was our Friday, and then we played. What was our last game Friday evening?
So we played Nations and Cannons.
Yeah, Nations and Cannons.
So Nations and Cannons, if you don't know, we might be the only people that play that. We're not. But we're the only people who talk about it.
Yeah.
So Nations and Cannons is a American Revolutionary War era module for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. So we picked that up
4 years ago.
About 4 years ago at Gen Con from a company called Flagbearer Games. I'm pretty sure it's the only product that they make. Like they
I think
formed
so.
a company and started making this. It is a really, really solid module. It's a really cool game, and it basically just ports D&D into the AmRev era. So you have fighters who can fight with things. You have rogues who do roguely things.
You have bards who don't have spells, but they have gambits, which are just normal, like speeches.
Yeah, you give a rousing speech, and it gives the effects of, an illusion,
a bless or something
things like that, right? We encourage people, and it raises their morale, which gives them the guidance bonus, right? Lots of real cool stuff like that, where it takes the magic and makes it mundane. And so you don't have a fireball spell necessarily, but you have grenades, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're a little less predictable, and it's the system's real cool. And we run it at Buckeye Gamefest. This was our third.
It's our
year.
tradition, yeah.
Right, yeah, because it was one of those things, we bought it, and it was like, we're never going to play it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how most people are with their RPGs. And I speak from
or
experience
games in
with
general,
it, right?
frankly.
And so I was like, well, let's just do it. Like, if we don't run it, no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
And so we were doing it for, this was our third year doing it.
Yep.
And we enlisted a friend of the show, Cullen. So really huge thanks to Cullen, because we ran 2 different tables again so that we could just get more stuff done.
And we actually had 9 players.
We had 9 players
which
across
was
those 2 tables.
Amazing.
That was really, really cool. And I think Russ had played before.
Yep.
And you had played.
Everybody else was new.
Everyone else was new to Nations and Cannons. We had a couple of experienced role players, a couple of people who haven't done RPGs since they were in middle school. And so it was a really fun experience to teach people it and get them involved in what RPGs can be. It doesn't just have to be spell slingers and fighting orcs.
Well, I do think it was interesting, because if you remember last year, John Lapham, the designer of that A More Perfect Union, that CDG on the Constitution, him and his 2 friends signed up for it. Tim Densham from Catastrophe, and I think it's Steve, I'm drawing a blank. They signed up for it. So it was kind of cool to see that group who had heard about it last year and they wanted to get in on it.
Yeah.
And then we had Ed Cullen, who ran the game. And then we had a Don, was his name?
Don, yep.
I think he just signed up, which was really great.
Love that.
And then I played.
And it was really, really fun to have a bunch of new guys who they weren't used to the kinds of things that can happen in our Nations and Cannons.
Well, in our Nations and Cannons game, because we interject a lot of the supernatural, particularly near the end of the
usually, you'll have very normal, mundane encounters.
A patrol, and you're fighting this, and you have to take this, or blow this up, or take this ship.
Free a prisoner, and raid some stores, do all this stuff. Usually we tried to interject something magical, mystical, mythical, and fun in it as well.
And we've successfully done that.
Have some good drama. So we had a really good time with that. Gosh, that we played all night.
4 hours.
Yeah, that was really wonderful.
4.5 hours.
Yeah, and it's also, it's a nice change of pace, right? Mm-hmm. We play a whole bunch of war games. Friday night we do an RPG, and then we play a whole bunch of war games.
Yeah.
I think next year we've got plans. So there's an RPG on Kickstarter right now. Who knows when you're watching this? Called War Stories from Firelock Games. Who did that pirate game? Yeah, they do Blood and Plunder, which is a miniatures game. But this War Stories has apparently been around a couple of years. I didn't know about it. And you were like, hey, have you seen this? And I'm like, I have now. Here's the big green button.
Bye.
And it's a World War II role-playing game, and it uses like a dice pool system where you're trying to hit 6s basically, which I've not played that system before. But it looked very reasonably priced. It looks really great. The reviews are good of it, and I'm like,
let's go for
World War II RPG.
Yeah.
Say more, right? And so I think hopefully we should have that by the end of this year, and I might run that instead next year, and we'll just so it'll be something again, something different, something fresh. and a different system, and who knows what that's like.
Yep.
So that's kind of the plan going forward, but always love doing the RPGs.
Well, I do want to talk about the supernatural part of the adventure, because it was fun, right? We had tried to discuss what we were going to do, and ultimately we decided on a werewolf concept. Every culture has tales and legends of werewolves, right? Men who change into wolves and have amazing powers. And I played a character, so I was a plant. I was a part of the scheme.
Yes.
I was supposed to, because I was the child of indentured servants who were spurned by Dr. Joseph Warren. This is totally made up because he had a good, reputation.
Apologies to his family for what we did to his reputation.
But he basically canceled my parents' indentured service contract right near the end, and they got shipped back to Holland, or I'm sorry, the Netherlands, which is where I was from. I stayed behind because I was so mad, and then found out that my parents died on the ship over. So I was out for revenge. We didn't have a backstory necessarily how I became a werewolf, but that's not important.
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
That's the myth.
But I was out to get Joseph Warren, who had a stellar reputation, and was a really nice guy.
Yes.
And I blamed him and lied about him and convinced everyone that he was a double agent.
Yep.
And that the British were going to take him captive and lead him away to safety, and we were all going to be left holding the bag. So I rolled some amazing deception rolls and some amazing discussions.
And gave some amazing, very convincing speeches, by the way.
100%.
Without the rolls, I'm pretty sure some of them would have done it anyway.
And they decided we're going to get him, and we went over to get him.
Because all of this is happening at the midst of the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Yes.
And that's where Joseph Warren was actually killed in history, and the British mutilated his body. It was freaking awful. And it was a case, but he's being led, he's being captured and
led away.
And so you're like, look,
they're
he's a double agent.
They're taking him away. Yeah. We ran over there. I morphed into a werewolf, killed him, and then tried to kill the whole party because I lost it, right? But it was a blast. They ended up defeating me.
It was the picking up a 6-pounder cannon and smashing it around was hilarious.
It was awesome. But I like to think about that because we know that he was killed and his body was mutilated and blah, 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 blah. And that was just a story made up as a cover for what really happened, right? Isn't that the way history works sometimes? So we had a blast doing that. I think everybody had a good time. They were shocked. Some of their faces when that happened, I was looking at them, it was just like they were.
Well, and there was, there's always the stuff that we didn't get.
Well, sure.
So there were, he had it turns out he wasn't a British double agent.
No.
He was in fact a werewolf hunter.
Yeah.
And he had in his pocket a bunch of silver stakes and silver bullets.
Yeah.
And he had a note, obviously, that explained all of that because that's how role-playing games work. But the problem is that they didn't have time to assist him because you had your legendary raw action where
oh
they would all flee and run away.
Yeah.
And he was dying on the other side of the battlefield.
Yeah,
So
it was funny.
There was a chance.
Yeah. They still killed me though because we forewent the need for silver. But it had a blast. Everybody had a great time. 4.5 hours, and we'll keep doing it, but next year I think we're going to do the war stories.
But yeah, I think I love doing an RPG.
It's a blast.
Buckeye Gamefest is great because you can get into the little RPG room. It's a little bit quieter. It would be harder to do that.
A little quieter. Maybe they were quieter, but we're loud.
We're very rowdy ones.
I felt so bad for the other two tables. They were kept looking at us.
I'm like that every year, though.
I know.
But WBC in that big loud room, that's not conducive to that kind of thing. I would feel like I was disturbing people.
Yeah.
But that was a blast. I always have a good time with that. So I'm looking forward to more RPGs in the future for sure.
So then Saturday, the final day.
Saturday, so we got up in the morning and we did our Time of Crisis teach and play event. So we had 2 tables of that. I think you had 3 players, I had 3 players.
Yep.
And so
we had 4 players.
That's right. Yep. So always love doing these kinds of events because, we're here to help the war room grow, help expand the hobby, and so we've done a lot of coin teach and plays for the last 3 or 4 years.
We took a break from that.
Wanted, because a lot of people have played a lot of those now, especially who attend that con. So we tried something different. So it's like, what's easy? What sits a lot of players? What do we know really well? Time of Crisis, easy, right? Yeah. And I think at my table, one of the guys had kind of piddled around on Rally the Troops a little bit, and so he kind of knew it, but not really. Nobody of the players didn't know it at all.
No.
And so that's a very easy game to teach. It's a deck building game.
Yeah.
It's like
it's just a classic
control style game. Like you get points, you fight battles, you get some points, right? It's not
you try to
complex.
become the emperor.
Yeah, and that was really fun. About a 2-hour event because it doesn't take that long to play that game. You just kind of blow through it. But it was a joy to sit down with new people and teach that and face to face. And you see that it lights up in their eyes of like, ooh,
this is cool. Yeah.
And it's your first game, so that they played the game, you make some mistakes, you do some good stuff, and then you spend 10 minutes afterwards of being like, okay, here's what happened, here's what happens. Here's some things that we didn't experience, and you go through like, hey, we never bought this card, here's what it does, and here's what that looks like, and
here's what a pretender looks like.
Yeah, and what does a pretender do?
Yeah.
And it like does this. Oh, but it's very brittle, so you have to be very careful with that. And so then you see more of their like, oh, there's more and more to explore in the game. And then you've got a whole expansion as well.
Yeah.
And the deluxe edition on the way. So.
Which we didn't use the expansion. We just did the base game.
That. But that was a blast.
It was great.
I love running those kinds of events as well, just to have an opportunity to sit down with other people and teach an easy game for them.
And Time of Crisis from GMTs, in my opinion, is just a very fun, playable game. I just love it. So
yeah, and that was a couple hours in the morning. After that, we played the new Cold War from VUCA Simulations. Yes, New Cold War is a 4-player
card-driven game.
Yes, card-driven game, and it's in a style-ish of Twilight Struggle. So it's
very different.
It's a political, diplomatic control game of a geographic map of the world.
Yep.
So you have a Russian player, a Chinese player,
who are the red bloc.
The red bloc.
They're kind of aligned.
And then you have an EU player and a US player, the blue bloc. And but only one of you wins. You have a block, and some things will affect one of the blocks, but it'll affect both players within that block. But you win individually with points. So eventually that block will probably have a schism in it, depending on who's winning.
Invariably. Well, the EU jumped out pretty quick, and then one time I removed one of his, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Trying to make sure you don't win."
Yeah.
I want to win.
Or I had like one of my cards was vetoed by the Russians. And you're like, okay, dude.
Come on.
I'm in last place.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, he should have vetoed our stuff.
He should have been fighting the EU from day dot instead of messing around with what he was doing. But that was, the game was fun. It was very interesting. It had lots of cool stuff going for it.
I actually think it's a really good game. I'm not sure about, you're getting ready to say it.
So there's two things. The rulebook's a little all over the place at times. It's one of those descriptive rule books. So to find the rule, it's in a paragraph,
it was hard to find it.
And it's laid out in certain ways, and it's like the rules are all there. They're mostly clear, but it's also like, instead of being explicit about this does this thing and this doesn't do this thing, it says you do this, and then it just doesn't address it. And so you're like, cool, we just do what it says, and we're not going to make any other assumptions about what does and doesn't happen. As opposed to like every other war game that's, so if you start with my GMT, they'll be like, this card play does this, then you do this and don't do this.
Yeah.
So that's just like the mode that it's written in is fine, but just know that. But then we're going to talk a little bit about the balance of this game.
And keep in mind, I played the game twice, you've played the game once, so it's, who knows? The other game that was going on across the room, they were much closer than we were.
Whilst that's true, they also had the exact same complaint about the China player as well, though.
Sure.
So I played as the Chinese, and
I'm just saying that because I want to make sure people
sure.
keep that in mind.
And I think the WBC game, that
US ran away with it.
Okay. Cullen was saying that they had also had a game that they'd played that was very close, though, apparently.
They played the
Separately.
game separately,
Okay.
and they said it was close.
But like, I worry about the China player because you can only operate in 2 of the like
Southeast,
9 regions.
Southeast Asia and Asia,
Asia,
Central Asia.
Like you can operate in those 2 things for
At
the
the
first
start of the
5
game.
turns of the game.
Yep.
You literally can't touch any of the rest of the board. Now, in theory, what that means is you're going to dominate those areas, and it's going to be very hard for everyone else to take them from you. But you could only get so many points out of that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in turn 5,
Excuse me.
the latest, you start unlocking South America.
Africa.
Well, guess what? South America's already been carved up.
Well,
And then you can unlock Africa, but that's pretty late game. You can unlock the Middle East if it's not vetoed by the Russians.
yeah.
But all of those are such hotbeds. You have to maintain this and try and expand a whole bunch, and you
Yeah.
just don't. There's not enough time. There's not enough ops points to do
You don't
it.
have the ops points. Most of the ops are 2. There's quite a few 1s, but there's only a few 3s and a few 4s.
And like
Which is fine.
you know, I dominated down here as pretty decently. I felt like I did well there.
Yeah.
But it just there's not.
Should you have been focused more on the social media track and the prestige track?
So one of my objectives was to have the social media track positive, but that would have gained me 15 points, and
Okay.
I lost that game by nearly 100 points.
But you
so I don't think it would.
The reason I brought that up is at one point, didn't you lose 9 points on the prestige track? Negative 9 VP.
on the prestige track, but not on the social
well,
media
but
track.
what I'm saying is I'm wondering when you don't have a lot to do in Asia and Southeast Asia.
But I still have a lot to do down there.
I know.
It's.
I was just trying to bring up maybe that's an alternative. Put a couple of ops into that, so you're not losing 9 points, you're losing 5 points.
Yeah, which is still not good.
You would have lost
But
by
then,
95.
like, so many of the card events were like bad publicity for the Chinese
Oh,
that my social media just
100%.
was like down all the time
The whole
anyway. It felt almost pointless trying to do that
Yeah.
and trying to get the Russians to help because they were not doing anything like that. It was. I think that's a tough road to hoe for the China player in that game.
Yeah.
Because I felt
Well,
like
and-
I got 90 points and there was very little else I could have done.
Yeah. Well, and conversely, I feel like the U.S. has a good starting strong position and have some good events at the beginning. And then they have some bad stuff in the 2000s.
But I think
period.
about how many bad hands did you have?
I had a lot of bad.
Probably-
I had 3 hands where I had nothing higher than a 2, and I had mostly 1s in those hands.
Yeah, you had a hand
So
of
I had-
all ones in one time.
Yep, I had 3 bad hands, and I still won the game by
a lot. 40
points.
And like,
Now I got all 3 of my objectives, which was lucky because I got South America, Central America, and the Middle East, and they were all on the same.
but if you're able to do that with, 33, 40, 45% real bad hands, that's
That
something to
says
think
something.
about. That's
Yeah.
something to think about. Which is,
Yeah. And I wanted to make sure we bring that up.
Because there's a lot to like in that game.
A lot. Very fun.
And I'd like to give it more goes as well.
Yep,
To
I wanna
see
play
if
it
that's
again.
something we can kind of really overcome and change and make that
Well,
work.
we're going to also Congress of Vienna, and we're going to play that at
Yeah.
WBC.
Because it's also one of those games that's like new and fresh, and a lot of people were playing
Yeah.
it. A lot of people were buying it because they had a lot
Well,
of copies of that for sale
It's
there as
gorgeous, and the production is just out of this world.
well. Yeah.
Embossed discs, not stickers. They're embossed, I think.
Yeah.
Were they stickers?
No. They're printed.
Okay.
They're printed.
That's amazing. Not embossed, silk printed or whatever
yeah,
it's
screen
called.
printed. I
Screen
think.
printed.
But yeah, those were great. It was good. I just
Sure.
I want to see more on that.
Well, and Russia struggled too.
Yes.
The EU and US were by far
I think. Yeah.
heads and shoulders above both of you guys.
But I see a pathway for Russia to have done better than they did. Instead
Okay.
of squabbling over things that they were doing, they should have been doing other things.
Right.
But China literally cannot operate on the majority of the board. And
until that's hard.
tough. That's
Yep.
And they're like, oh, China gets real good in the third age.
Did they?
I looked through that deck. They
yeah,
don't.
it wasn't great. They had 1 or 2 good cards, and that was about it.
Yeah, when everyone else gets their 1 or 2 good cards as well. Like it's, I don't know.
But still, the game was very enjoyable. I liked it a lot. I look forward to playing it.
There's a lot to like, and I want to see more from it.
Yep.
So the last thing that we played, because we were pretty pooped, is that we played the Lord of the Rings trick-taking game.
Yep.
So it's funny, we pulled that out, and almost everyone who was there was like, "Oh, I love that game!" Like, I think that's a game that so many people have. It's $20. It's stunning. We've played a bunch of it.
Yeah.
And it was just like
so good.
We got it out and played some more. I think we played 4, 5, 6 times. We goofed a couple times.
I think we only won 3 missions.
I think we only won 2.
2.
Yeah.
But that's a great game. It's uber thematic, beautiful components, and who doesn't like Lord of the Rings? I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing.
It's just a good time. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
And it's a light game to just kind of wind down with things.
Well, we played that, and then we went to dinner, and then basically we came back and we packed it up.
Called it a night and packed
because it was like 8:30, and I'm like, I want to go to bed. We were in bed by 11, which was fantastic.
We also went back to Age of Glory and bought a couple extra titles.
You weren't supposed to mention that.
But yeah, it was, all in all, we played an unconscionable amount of games.
14 total games is what we played.
And most of them were really good.
Yep.
And so it was a very successful
I think the only stinker I thought was Divine Right.
Yeah,
that was the only stinker.
Yeah, that was and it's rare that we play a game that's like a real stinker, but the reality is for us, that's one of them.
Yep.
Like, if you were to ask me to play it again, I would say no. It's just not worth. I don't see a situation that I would ever play unless they redid it.
Unless they add a lot of
that's all.
New stuff. Yep. Agreed.
Even if you came to me and you're like, "Oh, we're already experienced and we play it differently," and I would say no.
Yeah.
It's just not. That's not it.
Well, because we played it for 3 hours, and it was just wow. I don't know.
There's almost nothing in the game depth-wise to get invested in.
Yeah.
I think that's what I also really struggled with. It's move some guys over here.
It's hard.
We're going to roll some dice. They all died. Great.
Yeah. But other than that, I think almost all the other games were amazing.
Yeah,
we had
really
a great time. Always people are very nice, very kind, very opening, very inviting. The staff at Buckeye Gamefest is amazing. Kristen is amazing. Scott, I think, was the other guy that we dealt with.
Yep.
And this all goes back to thanks to Jeff Coyote, I'm probably saying his name wrong, from 5-6 years ago when he reached out to us and invited us, and we were like a guest of honor. And we're like, well, we're coming back every year.
Yeah, and it was really cool. There were guys from the East Coast.
From Colorado.
Yeah, guy from Colorado. There was dudes came up from the South. Those guys playing Successors were from Arkansas, I think.
Actually, they were from Alabama or Georgia.
Something like
that. Not
Arkansas.
No?
Yeah. Okay, they were from down south.
Yeah.
But a lot of people traveled to
Alabama.
Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Well, and you had Herman Luttman come, Mark Holt Walker, Denver Walker.
I think Tim Denham's up in
Tim
Michigan.
Denham was there. That John Lapham was there again. And we didn't talk much we played a couple games with Herman. We had dinner with Herman. Always great to talk to Herman Luttman.
Yeah, he's a mensch.
He's just a really good guy. Talked to Denver and Mark a little bit.
We sat down on camera with Steve Jones from Blue Panther, so there's a video with him coming soon as well.
I did an interview with David on his Line of Fire Burnt Moon, which is a Undaunted series, Lane Battler, very interesting looking, and then we did a video on Rebels Against Rebellion.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we kind of got to and people to see, and it's a really great convention.
100%.
It's not overwhelming.
Yep.
You can, it's at a nice hotel. There's a lot of good restaurants around. It's not overwhelming, and if you've never been to a gaming convention, this is a great place to start because it's not massive.
Yep.
Right? You're not going to go there and just be like,
Well, and I really feel like people are welcoming.
Very.
People are going to sit down and play a game with you. You just need to approach someone and, I understand sometimes it's hard, but go out of your shell and just say, hey, you want to play a game? And somebody's going to say yes.
Yeah, and if you go and put a geek list on, or you put one, hey, I want to run an event and I want to do Here I Stand, I need 5 players. It'll fill up.
Yeah.
This is the kind of convention where it's a playing convention, not a buying convention.
Yeah.
Where I know we bought a bunch of stuff, but
yeah,
it's a game playing convention. You will get to play the games that you have always dreamed of playing, right?
Yep.
Oh, I've had Here I Stand for years, and I don't have anyone around me to play. Next
year we're going to do it.
Drive here, make a little geek list, or like put it out there. People will desperately want to play that game with you, and you will have players, and you can play it.
Yep.
That's what something like Buckeye Gamefest is for playing the games that you have always wanted to play. But yeah, I had a great time. I look forward to doing it again, and I think we had some really successful events this year. I was super happy with how good some of the games were that we played.
Yeah,
like, we always play good games, but it was like
Crusader
Revolution
really
was
good
like,
ones. Yes.
Oh yes, like that, like shoots up to like really high levels of of like old time games for me. Congress of Vienna was like amazing.
Yeah,
and there's that's always really exciting to discover new favorites.
100%.
So I had a wonderful time. I look forward to more as well. And appreciate everyone for sticking with us and tuning in. I'm Alexander from PlayerSaid.com.
And I'm Grant.